Every offseason in the NFL represents a time of hope. Teams are reworking their rosters in hopes of grasping a Lombardi, and no team was perhaps closer to this goal last year than San Francisco. But in the Super Bowl, they lost a key player, Dre Greenlaw, with a torn Achilles, and with the recovery time often taking between 6 to 9 months, it's a real possibility we don't see Dre Greenlaw at all next year. So that has left me and others looking for potential replacements for Dre Greenlaw, and while I'm sure San Francisco will draft a rookie, in today's video I want to look at a player they already have on their roster, Jalen Graham, the rookie they drafted last year in the 7th round. So in this video, I wanted to deeply examine the player Graham is by first examining his athletic profile, his playing time his rookie year, and his career up to this point to see if we truly have a Dre Greenlaw replacement on our hands. Starting out with his athletic profile, Jalen Graham came in at 6'2", but a big reason we didn't see too much of him was his weight. He was 220 pounds, so he definitely needed to add weight his rookie year. But once Graham does get up to weight, he's exactly what San Francisco wants in the linebacker. His 40-yard dash was 4.64 seconds, Dre Greenlaw's 4.65. His 10-yard split, 1.68, Dre Greenlaw's 1.65. Essentially, they're the same player athletically. And even better for San Francisco, Jalen Graham and Dre Greenlaw both test a little bit worse than they play, because Jalen Graham and Dre Greenlaw both have these crazy instincts. As soon as they take their first step, they seemingly know where the play is going. To highlight my point, we're going to jump back to the preseason where Jalen Graham received his most amount of snaps to really determine the type of player he can become. When you're watching this play, for instance, watch how Jalen Graham reads this perfectly. He takes his read step, he notices the guards pulling, so he follows him over to the open hole where the running back's following, and then brings him down for a pretty minimal gain. This was perfectly read by a rookie linebacker. The best part about Jalen Graham though is he can continue to improve. When you're watching a play like this, sure, he gets the tackle, but what I really would like to see in the future is him shoot this hole as soon as it opens up. And only a few plays later, thanks to Johnny Hollins probably, we saw just that. He shoots this hole, reads it perfectly, and brings down the running back for no gain. One of the things I was most surprised about Graham was his ability to navigate congested areas, like here where he's able to bring down the running back despite a blocker being right in his face. And in the future, Graham is just going to improve at this. With added mass, he'll be able to take on these blockers, then shed them to make the tackle in the backfield. To highlight my point, we're going to move forward to week 2, where Jalen Graham once again shoots this gap, takes on the blocker, and then sheds it like I spoke about to bring down the running back. Once again, this is perfectly executed. So now think of Jalen Graham with 30 more pounds. He's going to absolutely blow up this blocker to make it so there's even less of a gain on this play. While we've been focusing on positives so far with Graham, we do need to focus on what happens when he makes a mistake. On this play, for instance, I would like to see Graham flow to the sideline with this receiver rather than kind of stay stagnant in the middle of the field, but I do like how he comes back over and punches out this ball. As we move forward to Jalen Graham's 3rd preseason game, I loved how we saw a rookie that continued to improve. On this play specifically, I do like how Jalen Graham is able to make an open field tackle. He's not tricked by this back and brings him down pretty perfect. And from the first preseason game, we see improvement on how Jalen Graham shoots holes. On this play, see how he's reading this all day long, shoots the hole perfectly, the guard can't get there, and he brings him down for a negative gain. Outside of these preseason games, like a lot of other younger rookies, we saw Jalen Graham on special teams, and he even made a tackle in week 14 against Seattle. But 1 year with San Francisco and a few games isn't enough to grasp the type of player Jalen Graham is. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into his football career up to this point, and it's a pretty wild one. Graham's football career started in Detroit, where he played at Detroit County Day School and Cass Tech High School. Unlike how he plays linebacker though, he played quarterback and defensive back in high school. He was even named All-State at the defensive back position. Coming out of high school, 24/7 Sports had Graham ranked as a 3-star recruit, and he had offers from Purdue, Ball State, Boston College, Bowling Green, and Central Michigan. Ultimately, Graham did decide Purdue over these other options. And while he was recruited to be a defensive back, almost immediately, Purdue switched him over to a hybrid type role. It was almost like a safety linebacker role. similar to the role Fred Warner played in college. But even with the switch in position, Graham didn't take any time to get on the field, playing 11 games in 2019, recording 37 tackles and 2.5 for loss. Following year in 2020, Graham appeared in 5 games, posting 16 tackles and 2 fumble recoveries and 1 forced fumble. Jalen's true breakout year came in 2021, where he started in 13 games, tallying 64 tackles, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and a sack. As a senior, Graham was hampered by injury, only playing in 9 games, but he still had 52 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 1 interception. During his college days, Jalen Graham was known as a playmaker. He would routinely pick off quarterbacks in zone coverage to only run it back all the way for a touchdown. In addition to that, he showed some real promise in his energetic run support. But there still are some major questions about his game. One of the biggest being his size. He only came in at 220 pounds, so many teams didn't really know where he would play. And that's the biggest reason why he slid so far in the draft. When you're watching Jalen Graham in coverage, for instance, his football instincts were off the charts. He somehow would know exactly where the receiver was behind him before picking off the quarterback. In run support, Jalen Graham wouldn't hesitate to take on bigger blockers. In addition to that, his first step and read were off the charts. He would play quicker than some 4-4 linebackers. But there were still areas of concern for his game. Specifically, when you're looking at his pass coverage, while he was great in zone coverage, he did struggle at times in man coverage. And while San Francisco probably won't put him in too many situations like this, he will need to improve if he expects to start in the NFL. As I've highlighted throughout this video, Graham is also on the lighter side for a backer, so he needs to add weight if he hopes to be an inside backer long term in the NFL. Furthermore, if Graham wants to attack these blockers, he needs to utilize his hands better. Sometimes he'll just stop using his hands and get driven back. But when San Francisco did draft Fred Warner, these were similar concerns scouts had. They thought maybe he wouldn't have a true position in the NFL, San Francisco wouldn't be able to add the mass necessary, and his athleticism would take a hit. None of these things happened. Rather, Johnny Hollins alongside DeMeco Ryans was able to make Fred Warner one of the best linebackers across the entire league. So I'm sure San Francisco looked at a guy like Jalen Graham and Fred Warner as his prototype. If you're able to develop him, add mass, he could definitely become one of the better linebackers in the league, and thanks to his DB ability, he has some of the best coverage you'll see. So San Francisco did decide to select Jalen Graham in the 2023 NFL Draft in round 7, pick 38, and I think this is an absolute steal. Graham really just fell all the way down here because of his size. Which brings us back to present day. Jalen Graham had a pretty strong rookie outing in my opinion. He was able to go out on the practice field during training camp and make a name for himself. In addition to that, his preseason performance was so strong, San Francisco decided to move off veteran linebacker Marcelino McCurry-Ball. So now with Jalen Graham entering year 2 in the NFL, I expect him to continue to improve. He has the best linebackers coach across the entire league in Johnny Hollins, and in combination with that, Graham is entering his first full offseason in the NFL weight room, meaning he should be able to add the weight many people wanted his rookie year. So while the injury to Dre Greenlaw is tragic, I do believe San Francisco has a good contingency plan here. They have Dee Winters as well as Jalen Graham, and if you put them both on the field to compete, I think you're going to continue to see San Francisco develop linebackers. But ultimately, these are just my thoughts on Jalen Graham and Dre Greenlaw's injury. And I'd like to hear your thoughts down below, who you would like to see to start. And it would also mean a lot to me if you liked and subscribed. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.